Good afternoon, Grant. We're going to start right away.
Good afternoon. Sounds good.
All right. Okay, so hello to everybody watching live or on tape. Today is Wednesday, the 6th of September. We're in day 7 of the online AWD1115 database-driven website development 2 class. Today we're going to be going over chapter 4. I am going to strongly suggest that anyone and everyone watching this video live or on tape, I'm going to build the project that's in chapter 4, and I'm going to suggest you build it with me. All right. If we get nothing more done with that than that today, we'll be doing well, because that gets us through chapter 4. All right. Then tomorrow we have a very short chapter, which is chapter 5, and that's on debugging. Much of the stuff in that chapter we've already touched on in the debugging chapter of our C# course. So what I'll do tomorrow is we'll go through some of the examples, end of chapter, etc., examples in class. All right, Friday will be our typical lab day, so there'll be no lecture, no emails, no nothing. And next Monday, well, students will plan on taking your chapters 4 or 5 test. If you can do this project between today and you watch this stuff tomorrow, you should be doing fine. I do want to let people know, though this is no excuse, this is no nothing. I am currently on medication, and I'm on this medication through Friday. And I've made the decision, good, bad, or indifferent, that until I'm off this medication, I'm not grading anything. So this weekend, believe me, I put aside a lot of time. My wife is out of town visiting family, so I will have time Saturday and I will have time Sunday. And my goal is to have all of the first, hands-on test 1 graded, and all of the chapters 1 through 3 work graded. And if people have got 4 and 5, that should say 3, but it doesn't. All right, so let's just start. What I've done to begin with is I've made a folder here that I called movie list. Now, you don't have to turn this in. I'll never know whether or not you did this or didn't do it, but I will tell you again that by doing it, you're going to be going through most of the steps that you'll go through for most of the projects that you will do. All right. So you can see they give you a short little intro to the app we're going to create. Then we talk about Entity Framework Core. And then we talk about how we can work with data and the stuff that's in there starting on 148. That's going to bring us back to the days of lambdas, LAMBDA, that we worked on in the C# class. And then we're going to go through and actually do the rest of the building for this. All right. So as we take a look at it and we go through the pages that are in here, this is what it'll look like. Now, I don't care what movies you put in, how many you put in, or whatever. I'm going to do it just the way they've done it here. So they'll have 3 total movies that we're going to seed the database with. You can see them right here. I'm not going to read anything here. But you'll notice if you look that each movie will have associated with it a name, a year that it came out, and a rating. All right. That genre that you see there will actually be in another table. So we will have 2 tables here. One table that we'll probably call movies or movie, that will hold the movie ID, the movie year that it came, the movie name, the movie year it came out, and the rating. We'll have another we will have another table that'll be called genre. And it'll be a little bit different from what we've been doing, because the way they've set it up, the ID for the genre table is a string, not an int. All right. So when it comes up, this is kind of what it'll look like, right? Forget about this bottom thing. So if we click add new movie, that'll bring this up where we can bring in a brand new movie. If we click delete, it'll come up And whatever one we've got highlighted, it'll ask us if we want to delete that one. All right. If we click edit, it's going to come up and it's going to have the exact same form as it does for add, except instead of saying add movie, it'll say edit movie. And instead of it being blank, it'll be filled in with all the current information for that movie. All right. So, I mean, that's basically in a nutshell, that's what we want to build. Now, when we take a look in here and they're showing you the files and the folders of this project, you will have all this stuff when you get done. We're going to build this as not an empty project. It'll have the connected services, it'll have the dependencies, the properties, the www root. It'll have a basically empty home controller. It will not have a migrations folder. It will have a models folder that has errormodel.cs in it. It'll have a views folder that'll have home and index, and that's it, except for shared, and it'll have all this stuff. All right. Now, we've talked about since day one what a model view controller is. All right. And by now, it should make sense to everybody that you'll put your models in the models folder, you put your views in the views folder, you put your controllers in the controllers folder. In addition, when we want to actually physically go in and create the database, we will add what's called a migration. If it works, it'll create a new file for us that will have two different methods in it, one called up and one called down. The up method will have all of the data that we want to use to seed the database with. All right. The down method will allow us to get rid of the migration that we created. So we will do a couple different commands through the package manager console. One will be add migration, and we'll give it a name. And then we'll do update database. I know we've looked at this before, but this is the first time we're physically going to be creating a database. All right. In addition, we'll be making changes to both the app settings.json file, and in there we will be adding our connection string, and in program.cs. And in there we will be making some additional changes as well. All right. So this project again uses EF Core. You can have me sit there and read this stuff to you, but the idea is typically when you use EF Core, Entity Framework Core, you build a database in one of two ways. You either build it in what's called code first, or you build it in what's called database first. If you build the project database first, you create your database, you run some commands, and it creates the associated classes that go along with your models folder that go along with it with the tables. If you do it code first, all right, you create your classes and you create what's called a context class. You run the add migration and the update database commands, and it creates the database for you. This book pretty much exclusively does code first. All right, and that's what we're going to be doing here. All right. In addition, we will be adding two packages using the NuGet package manager. So when we bring this up later, we will be adding two packages. What's going to happen on yours is if you click installed, and mine will be the same way, it'll be empty because we won't have any packages installed. But we're going to click browse and we're going to type in Microsoft.Entity Framework Core, and it's going to show us the two packages that we'll need. Those are Microsoft.Entity Framework Core.SQL Server, and one that's not shown on here that we'll do first, Microsoft.Entity Framework Core.Tools. All right, so we will be adding those in just a bit. Now they go through all the steps here, and we're going to do them together. So as always, if you've got questions, I'm going to expect that you're going to ask. All right. Then they talk about code first, and it's what I just mentioned to you. All right. When you create the code, it will go in and it will create a database for you. But that said, typically, you're going to want to add some stuff to that. All right. And if we look on here, this may make little to no sense, and it's okay. All right. We are going to make a class in our models folder called movie context. And as you can see, if you look at the stuff in mustard there, it's going to inherit from the DB context class. All right. And then after we do that, we're going to the movie context class right here. We're going to give it a constructor. And basically what it says is, hey, everything that you've got to do behind the scenes, have the parent do it. And that's what's going to happen there. All right. Then when we do this, there's two ways of doing it. Notice what they have here. Public DB set movies get set equal no. If you don't have any seed data, you typically set it up like this. In other words, null, meaning there's no records in there. We will put in ours. All right. Okay. Once we do this, we're going to do this in conjunction with what you see on the bottom of the screen here. And that is, we're going to create a movie class. And actually, we're going to create a movie class and a genre class. But to start with, we'll create a movie class. I believe I said this to you earlier, but I'm saying it again regardless. And that is, anytime you create a class like this and you have ID in it, whether the ID is capitalized, lowercase, mixed case, whether it's by itself or whether it's part of the name of the table as we have here, that will automatically become the primary key. And usually you make it an integer and it will auto increment. So it'll start at 1 and increment by 1. All right. Then you'll notice we're going to have 3 tables in here. All right. I'm fields in here, 3 other fields other than our ID. We're going to have a name field, we're going to have a year field, and we're going to have a rating field. We're not talking genre yet. These are all 4 of the fields that make up the movie table. All right. And you'll notice that not with the primary key, but with the other 3, they're all required. So we've got the required decorator on there with just a simple error message that basically says, please enter a name, or please enter a year, or please enter. In addition, for both the year field and for the rating field, all right, for both those, we have ranges. All right. And the range for the year field, and if you don't like that range, you can change it. All right, because not to be funny, but I don't think any of us are going to be here in $29.99. All right. But if you wanted to change that, and I don't know what year the first movie came out in, I think it was either in the late 1700s or the early 1800s. So we could change, leave it the way it is. All right. And then for the rating, it has to be a number between 1 and 5. Now you'll notice that we are initializing name to string.empty, which means that, again, if we don't put anything in there, it should go to the empty string. Even though we are going to do for year and rating, we're putting that question mark in there, we won't allow nulls. Because if you leave it empty, it's going to come back with a please enter a rating. We're putting that question mark in there so we have no problem in the compilation process. All right. So as it says, within this DB context class, you can use the DB set to map to database tables. These are known as either entity classes or domain model classes. And I already mentioned the thing about the ID, so we don't have to say that again. All right. As far as seeding our initial data, we're going to do that as well. Here's an example. This is how they're doing it. All right. I want you to notice something here. As of right now, if you remember, I'm not going to go back to it, but if you remember that when we looked at the way that this is going to look when it runs, it showed the movie's name, the movie's year, the movie's genre, and the movie's rating. There is no genre in here. All right, that'll come in later in the process. But what we're doing in here is we are seeding just the fields that are in the movies table itself. Now, the reason that you have to put everything in for all fields is because this is seed data. So we're putting in 3 movies. I'm not going to read them. You can see them right here. If we were to go back in, let's just say that we went back in ourselves and we clicked the button to add a new movie. So for the name, we put in Rocky. For the year, we put in whatever that was, 1990. And for the rating, we put in it's automatically going to give it an ID of 4. All right, because we have IDs 1, 2, and 3 already being used here. Okay. All right. We have to add our connection string before we can go and create the database. So let's look at that. They do a lot more explaining in here than I'm going to explain. But when you look in here, again, if you look at what's the mustard thing, right now, the way that this will look is everything that you see that comes after this comma, can't do it, I guess, but after this comma right here, up until the second last curly, that's not in here. We have to add this. So we have to let it know there's going to be a connection string. That connection string is going to be using our own local machine, which is going to be for all of us, should be local DB in parentheses, / MSSQL local DB. When we create, we have to give our database a name. I've already got a movies database, so I'm just going to call mine movies DB. You can do it either way. All right. The trusted connection basically says that you are trusting that the stuff that you put in here is correct. And finally, where it says multiple active results sets, this basically says that it is possible, even though we won't do it, to have multiple people working on this at one time. Now, when I ran this class last, someone asked me, how come that's true with a capital T and that's true with a lowercase t and doesn't matter? And my response was, I don't think it matters. I don't know why one is capitalized and one isn't, but every time I create something, I use the capitalization that they show. All right, that's the best thing I can tell you. All right. Now, what I'm going to have to do in here is we're going to have to go in and where it says code that enables dependency injection, we'll have to add some code in here. And it won't be exactly like it's shown here, but it'll be very close. All right. So when you look here, the connection string, as it says, will contain the information the app needs to connect to the database. Things like, where will that database be housed? What is the name of that database? All right. That again is put inside of the app settings.json file. In addition, all right, for the dependency injection, as it says, dependency injection is a design pattern in which stuff that the program needs basically is passed into it rather than you having to hard code it. All right. Now, that's a terrible explanation because all I did was read what was in the book. But we will have a chapter much, much, much later in the book that will talk all about dependency injection. All right. So as it says there, to inject DB context objects into a controller, there's going to be code we have to put in. All right. And part of it will be a Lambda expression. You'll do something similar to this in most every program that we create. All right, okay. Now, as far as migrations go here, okay, when you get done setting up your model classes and your DB context class, and you've come in and you have updated your app settings.json file, you're ready to create the database. To create the database, again, you are going to add a migration. You add the migration and you do that through the package manager, the NuGet package manager console. So you do that from the equivalent of a command line. So you will say add migration and you'll give it a name. That will create a folder in your project called migrations. After you create the first migration, if it works successfully, it will put in two files. So let's say that we created a migration, we called it initial setup. All right, it'll create two files. The first one will have a big date and timestamp on it. And then at the end, it'll say initial migration.cs. The second one will be similar to that, but it'll have the word snapshot on it. And what that one does is it's a system file that basically when you make changes, it tries to record what you're doing. Don't monkey with that one, okay? So a migration, as it says, is a file with C# code in it that you use to create, modify, or delete database objects. So in other words, after you do the migration, we'll be able to code in CRUD operations, which will allow us to, in our case, create new movies, modify existing movies, or delete existing movies. When you create the migration, and I mentioned this to you earlier, it creates an up method. That up method has all the seed data in it. And it has a down method that says, if you remove the migration, it's going to get rid of it. And that's the code that's in there. All right. In fact, I think they show it on the next page. So we're going to be running commands like this. Add migration initial. All right. So we're going to go through all this stuff in just a bit. All right. This is an example of the up. So this is what's going to happen. Now, what this is, just so you know, if you look on the screen here, this is how you can literally build a database using C# code. Doing it using code. That's what this is doing. All right. So it's showing you the schema basically in here, and here it's showing you the record data. Okay. Again, we're going to look at all this in just a bit. Now, as it says, we're going to use link to select data. We're going to use link for virtually everything that we want to do in here. All right. So when we look, there's the methods that we're going to use. We're going to use where, and you know that that allows us to put in filtering criteria, order by, because we'll want to order by the, after we put in the movies, we'll want to order them by name so they're in alphabetic order. The first or default, we'll use that so that if we want to edit an existing movie, we can call the first or default. So it'll either find that movie or it won't. And the to list will allow us basically to take what's returned from the database and put it into a format that C# can understand. All right. And we've got find in here, and notice it gets passed an ID into it. So as it says, it returns the first instance of the entity with that primary key, or null if it doesn't find it. So all that stuff, like I said, is explained in here. All right. Now, I jumped way ahead because we haven't done anything yet, but I wanted to get to that point, and now I want us to start building the project. All right. And then we'll walk through everything far again, and then we'll slow it back down when we get to the how to insert, update, and delete data. So let me go back here. All right, right to the start. Okay, whoops. So again, I'm jumping right back, or trying to, right back to the beginning. And we're just going to literally, again, take this from the top. All right, that's good enough. So an introduction right there. So let's do this. Let's start up a new instance of Visual Studio. Right there. All right. Now we've done that. I want you to go to create a new project. And we've done this now a couple times. I want you to choose ASP.NET Core Web App Model View Controller, the one I've got right there. You can either double click on this or single click. And all right. Now I've already created a folder called Movie List that I put onto my desktop. You're welcome to use that name or come up with your own. But I'm going to put in here Movie List for both the project name and the solution name. And for the location, I'm going to go out and I'm going to find here my movie list. So it's movie list. Good. And click next. All right, make sure that this is set to .NET 7.0. We don't need HTTPS. We're not doing anything with authorization in here at all. So we can uncheck that. It doesn't hurt to check it, but I'm unchecking it. And we're clicking create. All right. After you do all this, this is what your program should look like. Again, although it will do virtually nothing, I can run it from here. And I get this, that welcome page, which does basically nothing, a privacy page, which basically does nothing, and the name of our application, movie list. That's all fine. All right. So let's start prettying it up to this to make this start to run, be like the way we want it to be. All right. So it's always, as you would guess, up to us how we do this, but I'm going to do a few things here. I'm going to first go into models right here. We've got this error model.cs, which I don't need, but I'm not going to remove it yet. Instead, I'm going to right mouse click on the models folder. I'm going to choose add, and I'm going to go down to class. And class that I'm about to create, movie, singular, MOVIE.cs. All right, this is going to be the main table in my program. I'll have another one that I'll create later. I'm not going to worry about that one right now. All right. Also, just so you know, in this particular chapter, in this particular app, we're going to do two migrations. The first one is going to create our database and our movie table. And the second one is going to go and update our movie table and create our genre table. All right. We could do everything at once. We're not, because I'm trying to follow what they're doing in the book. All right. So I'm going to come in here, and one thing is I want to come in and I'm going to want to do some required stuff in here. All right. So I'm going to come in here and immediately put in a using statement. You don't have to, but I'm going to put in here using system.componentModel.data annotations. And what that says is now when I come in here and I put required, all right, it's going to know what that means. That's all that's doing. That's it. All right. If I did not put that in, as soon as I put required down here, which we'll do in a minute, like that, we get an error because it wouldn't know where required is. Now, I'm not going to leave that required in there. All right. But I'm going to put some comments in here so you can see what we're doing. And I'm going to put here entity framework will instruct the database to automatically generate this value. And I'm going to put in here non-seed data. So in other words, unless we're putting in special seed data, which we'll do in a couple minutes, but unless we're doing that, all right, when we click the Add New Movie button, it will automatically put this field in for us. And this field will be a public int, and we'll call it movie ID with a get set. All right, don't worry about that. Okay, so that's our first field. As mentioned before, okay, we're going to have 3 other fields in here for right now. All right, so next will be our name field. We want the name to be required. So we will add an error message, meaning that if they don't put a name in, we'll say, please enter movie name. All right, so this will be public string name with a get set. So that's our first ones that we're putting in there. Okay, so next we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do the year and then we're going to do the rating. So let's do the year next. And again, this will be required. So this will be a public int with a question mark. In fact, before we do that, let's put a range specifier in here too. So we'll say a range, and again, I'm using the ones they used in the book, which were 1889 through 2999. All right, and the error message is equal to please, I'm sorry, year must be between, and it's the 2 years that we just put in here, and that is 1889 and 2999. All right, and next we'll have public int. We will put a question mark there. Year, again, with a get set. All right. Finally, we'll have one more field. Again, it'll be required. And the error message will be, please enter a movie rating. We'll again put a range in there, be a very simple range, and that range will be 1 through 5. And the error message, the error message will be equal to rating must be between 1 and 5. Okay, we're not done yet, but we're almost finished with our first go round of this. I don't think I have any errors in there. If we don't want this question mark or this underline here, we can go in and either say equals double quote, or the way it's normally done, equals string.empty. We'll leave that in there. All right. Now, there's one more thing we're going to add. We did look at this when we went through the program on the first day, and that is we want to looking URLs. So we want to replace any blank spaces in our URLs. We want to replace those with hyphens. That's typically called using a slug, and it goes from newspaper days. So I'm going to add one more thing into this. It's not going to be a property. It's going to be the equivalent of a method down here. And I'm going to say public string slug. All right, and I'll put this on 2 lines, and I'm going to say name dot replace any blanks with a hyphen, and we want everything to be, our whole URL to be in lowercase. Not only that, we'll also put in here at the end the year that the movie was made. Okay. Let me move this over so you can see everything. And I'll move this over as well. And I'll move this over. There we go. Now, I put in a little more than you need here. All right, this is the null coalescing operator, which basically says, hey, if there's a year, convert it to a string. If there's not a year, just leave it empty. So we won't have any errors. All right, it's not hurting anything at all to put it in that way. We could have left this out technically, and it really probably, it might have given us a warning. I don't think it would do anything. All right, I like to add that. Again, that's not even discussed much in your book, but I just wanted you to see it. All right, now, as always, Grant, I'm picking on you because you're the only one here. Is there anything in this file that does not make sense?
No, I think this is clear so far.
Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to do a file, save all, and for now at least, I'm going to close this file. All right, now in my models folder, I'm going to create another file, another class. So now I can get rid of this error view model.cs, because I won't use it. That's all it is. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight it, and I'm going to choose delete and say yes. So now all I have in models is my movie.cs, and I'm about to go in there and create a second file right now. So I'm going to right mouse click on here, choose add. I'm going to go down to class again, and I'm going to call this movie context.cs, like this, movie context.cs. All right. Now, there's some stuff that we want to do in here, but the system isn't going to let us do it right now. And the reason it's not is there's those 2 packages, those Microsoft Entity Framework packages I told you about before. We have not added those yet. What we want to be able to do, you don't have to type this because I'll probably get an error. We want to be able to type in using Microsoft dot entity. Notice it's not there. Entity Framework Core. And it's saying, I don't know what you're talking about. So it says, well, what do you want to do here? You can remove it or just tell it to suppress the error. We don't want to do either. So I'm going to just remove this line for now. All right. Now, I'd like you to please go and click on Tools, and under Tools, go to NuGet Package Manager, and under NuGet Package Manager, choose the middle option, Manage NuGet Packages for Solution, right there. And if it comes up looking like this, it worked. Now, you haven't put anything in yet, though. If you look under installed, it should be empty. We haven't installed any packages yet. We're going to install 2 of them right now. So you can go over to browse, and that's going to show you a listing of everything. We could just look through it ourselves, but we're going to type in here in our search box, Microsoft dot entity framework core. All right. And there's a few things that come up, not as many as that were in here before. We want this one, tools, and we want this one, SQL Server. According to Microsoft, it doesn't matter which one of these install first. I found it seems to work better when you do tools first. So I'm going to click here on Microsoft.entity framework core.tools. All right, and that brings it up over here. And it says, where do you want it? Almost always, if not always, you'll click the top box, which will highlight both. It says not installed, and we want the latest version. So click install. Now, yours might come up a different screen up here than mine. If it does, you might have a thing that tells you to have to click an OK button. And then there'll also be a little thing on the side that says, if you don't want to see this anymore, click that checkbox. That's what I did. So you might have to do an OK, but then after that, I accept. And now it's added that first package. We've got one more to do. And that is the one right above it, Microsoft.entity framework core.sql server. I'm going to do the same thing. You'll notice it's already checked and it says not installed. I'm going to click install. It's going to add a few more things this time to it. And again, I'm going to choose I accept. And now I'm ready to go. Now, what I strongly recommend that everybody do, I said this last semester and some people were like, forget it. It's up to you. But I recommend that you close now the NuGet Package Manager, close it, and bring it right back up again. So go to Tools, NuGet Package Manager, Manage Packages for Solution. Now go to Installed and make sure both those are in there. All right. And I found that it, a couple times, for some reason, one of them was not installed. So I went back through the process again. If it says they're both in there like this, great. Just close this and we're ready to go now. But notice now, if I type in using Microsoft.entity framework core, lo and behold, there it is. So we needed to bring in those two packages for the system to basically be able to work with and do what we wanted to do. All right, that's a crummy explanation, but it'll have to do for right now. All right. Now, the other thing we have to do that we couldn't do earlier is this movie context has to, as you can see from the IntelliSense, it has to come in and inherit from DB context. That's the parent class. So movie context is now a child of DB context. All right. Now, we're going to type some code in here now, probably the next 10 minutes or so. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a constructor for this. All right. So I'm going to say public movie context. And I can't give you a good reason why all this stuff that we have to type it in, etc. It's in your book. You might find that you're more confused after reading it. That's why I'm not going over it with you. But DB context options, movie context options, like that. Just like that. That's our constructor. which basically says any options that we need are going to be handled by the parent. Hopefully you remember that base from the C# class when we worked on inheritance. Base says basically it's going to call the parent's constructor, and it's going to pass those options up to it. All right, so that's the first thing we need to do. Next, we're going to eventually create 2 of these, but for right now, we're only going to create 1. And that is, so I'm going to put in here, create DB sets, even though right now it'll be just DB set. So public DB set movie, we're going to call, that'll be the name of our table, will be movies. This is the name of our entity model class that we're using, that when it creates the database, it'll call it this. That's typically the way you do it. You typically take the model class and you make it singular, and you make the table name that you're going to create, you make that plural. That's just one of those things that you do. Okay, so now we're going to put in our seed data. So enter movie seed data. And all seed data is, again, we're making sure that the database isn't empty. So we're going to put in 3 movies. That's all we're doing. All right. And to do this, we have to override a class that is basically of one of the parents' classes. It's called onModelCreating. All right, and we do it like this. Now, this line that's right here, I'm going to remove it because it's wrong. The system threw that in. But you've got to do this. And now we're going to put in our seed data. We will put in right now 3 records. All right. Okay, now this is going to look a little bit weird, for lack of better words. All right. But it like I said, for lack of better words, it is what it is. All right. I don't need that. And I want to put this on a line by itself. There we go. So this left parenthesis that you see right there, that's the end of it right here. All right. And now I'm going to put in my records in between here. How am I going to do that? I'm going to create 3 new movie record objects. All right. So what happened there? I don't know. We'll try it again. That's our first movie. We're going to put in 2 or 3 more. All right. There is our second movie. So I'm going to put in one more. Oops, that's not the ID, it's the name. All right, so those are our 3 movies, and we need a semicolon at the end there. So I'm going to leave that up there for a moment, and hopefully you'll be able to grab all of it. Later, we will add another DB set in here where we will have our genres. We will have 7 genres: A for action, C for comedy, D for drama, H for horror, M for musical, R for rom-com, and S for sci-fi. So let me know when you've got that much put in and I'll move it down.
I've got it put in.
All righty. And there's the rest if you need that. Now, again, we could put in anything we wanted. As I mentioned, we must manually add the IDs because it's seed data. Also, the name field is a string, so it must be within double quotes. All the other fields are numeric, so they cannot be within double quotes. All right. Hopefully, again, all that just, it's review and all of it makes sense to you. All right. I'm going to do a file, save all. Okay. And I'm going to close this file for right now. All right. Couple more things and we'll take a break. All right. And what are those things? Well, first, what I want to do next is I want to go in and I want to find the check on a couple of the files that are in here. And if you say, well, what do you mean? Well, let's go in and let's find the app settings.json file. All right, I'm going to grab that and bring it up in just a second. So it's right here. This is what it looks like now. All right. And we're going to add some stuff under where it says allowed hosts. Now, I want to show you something. I may have shown you this earlier. I don't know. But if I go into here, you don't have to do this. But if I go up and choose View and I go to SQL Server Object Explorer, it brings this up. And then if I open this up, okay, in here, it shows me these are all the databases I've made over time. You won't have all those, of course. But if you look here, it says local DB in parens /MSSQL local DB. So that's my local server. So that's what I want to set up in here right now. So I'd like you to add a comma here and put in double quotes, connection strings, because you can have multiple. We almost always, if not always, will not have multiple, but you can connect to more than one database at the same time if you need to do that. All right. So what you put here must be the same name as what we called that class before. So movie context must be the same. All right. Then a colon. Let me move this way over. Otherwise, we won't have room. All right. So now we're going to put in this server equals what I showed you before, local DB in parens / MSSQL LOCAL DB. We're not done, but I'll let you put all that in. Let me know when you've got it in, please.
Okay, I've got that.
All right. Next, we're going to give it the name of the database. So I'm going to say database equals, and I'm going to call mine movies DB. All right. Again, with a semicolon at the end here and one here, and we're still not done. So let me know when you have that.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. Trusted connection equal true. And we're still not done. There's one more to go and then we're finished. So I'll just start putting that in. And it is multiple active result sets equal true. Double check and make sure you spelled everything correctly because it's so easy not to. Multiple active result sets, and it is plural. Trusted connection, that looks good. Database equal movies DB, and then the name of our server. Now, if we were running this, let's say we worked for, I don't know, let's say we work for Amazon. All right, we're pretending here we work for Amazon. Do you have everything here?
Yes, I think I'm
Okay.
good.
So if we work for Amazon, that's not what we'd be using. We'd have the actual name of an actual server in there. But since we're doing it on our machine, this is the way that we do it. All right. So let's go in and let's do a file save all. And at least I hope we won't need to do anything more to that file in here. All right. But we are going to have to go in and change one last file. Let's see, where am I? And that is this program.cs file. All right. But I'll tell you what, it is 1:03. Let's take a break. Let's come back at 1:15 and we'll just pick it up right from there. We're going to make changes to this. Then we're going to see if we can do a migration and actually create the database. I'll see you at 1:15. Be right back. All right, it's 1:15, so I'm going to start back up again. Now, there's one more line or a couple more things that we have to add. First is we have to go into our program.cs file. All right, right at the bottom here. Open that up and go down to the bottom of the file. All right. And what you want to do in there is you basically have to make a modification to this. What this line right here says is this is our default routing pattern. So it says, unless you tell it otherwise, it assumes you're using a home controller. It assumes that you are running an index method, and it is possible, optionally, you can put in an ID there. We have to add something to that, and that is after this, after the curly brace that you see right there, before the double quote right there, you want to put in slash, because we also have an optional slug that we're going to use like this. Okay. So again, what we've done there is we went in and we modified our default routing pattern to allow us to be able to go in there and put in this slug so we can have a friendly URL. All right. All right. I'm taking for granted you had time to put that in. Now, what we do next, and I'm hoping against hope that I'm putting it in the right spot, and I think I am. All right. And that is going up in the same file that we were just in, right underneath where it says builder.services, etc., all that good stuff. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to try to add something. That over a little. All right, so get connection string. And finally, it looks like we need that statement, that using statement at the top. So you probably don't have that. All right, using Microsoft.Entity Framework Core. All right, now let's see what else it doesn't like. The name configuration does not exist. Server configuration dot get connection string. It doesn't like the configuration. Well, what if I do this? This shouldn't matter. Nope, doesn't want that either. Okay. should have checked this during the break, so give me a second. I'm going to see if I can figure out where the problem is in here. Son of a gun. All right, I don't want to waste any more of your time. So for right now, I'm going to just take this line and comment it out, because otherwise, of course, the program won't run. All right, so I've got to comment out all that. All right, that is the right line. I might be putting it in the wrong place, and I'm trying to figure out why it's in the wrong place. So let's just do this. We are going to go on. We're not going to be able to build a database yet, but we can build everything else that we're going to need. All right, so let's come in here. I'm going to do a file, save all, and I'm going to close the program CS file for now. All right, and now I'm going to go in and start creating the components in here that I'm going to need. All right, and I'm going to start here with this home controller. All right, and actually, I'm going to end up having a home controller, and then I'm going to build a movie controller as well. All right, but for now, let's just worry about the home controller. So you should know this by now, or hopefully at least it makes sense, that I've got under my controllers, I've got a home controller. That means under my views, I will need a folder called home. So later I'm going to add a movie controller into here. So I'll need to create a folder under views called movie. All right. So let's come into here. This is what's in here right now. This is the junk that's running basically at the beginning of the program. You can see we have an error. We have that error here because I removed that error view model. Why? Because we don't need it. In fact, starting from the top, we're going to get rid of the diagnostics because we're not doing anything with logging. I'm going to come in here and where it says logger, all this stuff here, I'm going to highlight that and get rid of that. And at the bottom where it's got this is more logging stuff, I'm going to get rid of that. So what I just did was I trimmed down my home controller so that right now, this is all that it holds. We're going to make some changes to it in just a minute. But for right now, this is all that this thing holds. And this is actually going to be a very small controller. All right. Okay. So we don't need this privacy either. We can get rid of that. We're not doing anything with privacy. We'll get rid of that. That means later in here under home views, we've got a privacy view and we can get rid of that too, because we just removed the privacy thing that is related to it. So I can remove that privacy file as well. All right. So this is all that's in here now, but we have to add a little bit. Okay. So when we go and run the index method, for lack of better words, kind of like the home method for our home controller, this is what we'll want to have happen. All right. Well, what we will want to have happen is we will want it to show us all of our movies. I want to say that again. We're going to want this to show us all of our movies. All right. How do we do that? Well, we're going to need to use that movie context object that unfortunately I'm still having that one error in, but we're going to go on as best we can anyway. So we're going to say here private movie context, and I'm just going to call it context, and it'll have in there a get set. Anytime you see these get sets, by now at least, it should make sense to you that those are properties. All right. So we have to put in a constructor. So I'm going to say public home controller movie context, and we call it whatever we want. Typically people call it CTX. And we're going to say context equals CTX. All right. All that is doing is it's making sure that we have the ability to use our movie context, which again basically means we can use the database. All right. Now, what we want to do in here, let me show you. Don't type this because we're going to have to make a change, another change because of the way we're writing this. But I'm going to say here var movies equal context dot movies. All right, we're going to write basically a lambda expression in here. Okay, and we want to say here is dot include, and don't worry, we're going to get an error, but we're going to fix it in about 2 minutes. Okay. Now, I expected to get an error here. All right, we're going to go back and we're going to make a change to our models file in just a second. What it's telling us here, all right, what we are telling it is we want to grab everything from our movies table. But if you remember what our movies table currently has in it, what our movies table currently has in it are just 4 fields. It has an ID field, a name field, a year field, and a rating field. It does not have a genre field. We're going to tell it that we want it to include the genre field here. That's what that dot include is. So it's basically in just a minute, it's going to include that from another table. All right. Now we want to order our movies in ascending order. All right. By the movie name. So literally, this is it. This line here that's, I don't know what that is, but we're not using this. We're not using this line here. That's it. So like I said, right now it's giving us an error. We're going to fix that error right now. So that will go away in a matter of moments. But in English, what this says is that when our page comes up, it will come up with the home controller and it will run the index method. When it does that, it should show us a listing of movies, including for each movie, the movie's name, the year the movie was released, the movie's rating, and the movie's genre for each one. And it should list them out for us. So this movies that we have this right here is what we're ending up passing here into this file, viewsmovieindex.cshtml. I mean, this stuff all fits together for lack of better words. All right. Let me know when you've got all that, please.
I've got it.
All right. Then let's go back into our models here and let's add the genre. All right. There's a few things we're going to have to do here. First is we're going to right mouse click on models. We're going to choose add. We're going to choose class. And we're going to choose genre for the name. So genre.cs. So there that is. It's only going to have two fields in it. Very, very simple. It's going to have public, and this, even though this is our primary key, it's going to be a string. So string, genre, ID, get set, public, string, name, get set. That's everything. All right. Now we're getting this. And again, we can come if we want to come in here and say equals string.empty. That one we're not going to change because it's a primary key. So we're going to leave that error or whatever you want to call it there. The way they do it in the book is they create the movies table without the genre in it and do a migration. Then they have you come back and add this table and update the movies one. So we're only going to have to do one migration. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I guess remains to be seen. So we've got that. I'm going to do a file and I'm going to do a save all on here. All right. Then we're going to go back to our movies.cs file so we can close this. And we're going to go back to our movies.cs file. We still have an error in our code because we have to add a little bit more. All right. So after our rating that we have in here, after our rating, so above the slug right here, we're going to add 3 lines. And I'll explain what each one means after we put this in. So go ahead and put that in. Let me know when you've got these 3 lines in, and then we're going to go over what each one of them means.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. All right. For lack of better words, this is a foreign key. If you remember what a foreign key is, what you shoot for when you are creating a database is to have an entire database that has one-to-many relationships. Well, what we want is for every one genre to have 0 or more movies that are connected to it. So what we're doing is we're taking the genre ID, this, which is the primary key in here, we're adding it in here as a foreign key. All right. We also want to be able to use the name field. So what we're doing here is we're basically also making everything that's in that table available to the movies table. All right. And the reason that we're going to have to do that is we want to be able to, for a new movie, immediately add a genre to it. All right. I can't explain it any better than that. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense or not, but I'm going to do a file, save all, and I'm going to go back to the home controller, and you'll notice that that genre error is gone now. At least it should be after you put that in. So what we're doing here again is we are setting up all the fields that we have in here that are actually in this table. In addition, we have added as a foreign key the primary key, okay, of another table. And we brought in that other table. So basically anything, everything that's in there is now available to us. All right. So again, I'm not sure if that makes any sense or not, but I'm sure that someplace in here, because I was looking for it during the break, that this is explained exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it. All right, so we'll go back maybe later and take a look. Okay, so right now we've got our models are complete. We've got one of our controllers written. So that controller is done now. So I'm going to do a file, save all, and I'm going to close my movie.cs file. I'm going to close my genres.cs file, and I'm going to open up or create right now. I'm going to create a movie controller. This is going to be a little bit of typing, not a ton, but a little bit. So I'm going to go up to controllers here, right mouse click, choose add, choose controller. Almost always for this class, we will choose MVC controller empty, the top one, choose add, and we've got to give it a name. Well, this will be called movie controller. Controllers should always end with the word controller. When you use it in a file, you don't put the word controller in there, all right? But the system expects that, and it has to do with this, code over convention idea, that it just expects certain things to have certain names, all right? All right. This is another using statement that you're basically going to have in just about every controller you work with. Why? Because that MVC is basically this. Every controller inherits from the controller class. So movie controller is a child of controller. The stuff for controller is defined in that file. That's why you need that. All right. So I'm going to try to put another couple files in here and see if this works. All right. And you'll notice that right now, both of those files are grayed out, meaning that neither one of them are being used right now. Well, we're going to add some stuff right now so that we're going to be able to use them. All right. So right now, we've got this index method in here. And I don't even think we're going to need this. So for now, I'm at least going to try to remove it. This is going to be our movie controller. What we want to do in here is we want to be able to add a new movie, edit an existing movie, or delete an existing movie. All right. Now, when we are working with these, each one of these, the add, the edit, and the delete, are each going to have two different methods associated with them. One will be an HTTP get method, which will show a form, and the other one will be an HTTP post method. So boom, when we click the calculate or whatever the button is we're using, that it'll handle it. All right, so let's start. We did this once before. We're going to come in and say private movie context. And again, we'll call it context. And it will have a get and a set. And we instructor. All right. And now we're going to add our add method, and we're going to add our edit method. And just so you're aware of this, we're going to use the same folder. I shouldn't say the same folder, the same form for both adding a new record and editing an existing record. We're going to use the same form for each of these. All right, because we're doing the same thing. The only difference is if we're adding a new record, the form will be empty to begin with. If we're editing an existing record, it'll be full of information. All right, so let's come in here and let's do an HTTP get. And we'll start with an add. Now, I'm going to put, it's just 3 lines. Let me put them in, then we'll go over all of them. Oh, I know what we're getting at here. Okay, we got to make a change. Everything that's in here is good. It's all good. But we have to go into our movie context file because we didn't add genres in here. All right, we're going to have to do that right now because it's looking for genre and it has no idea what genre means. Okay, so right now we have this. We're going to have to make a couple changes. So we've got public DB set movies. That's good. We have to add another one for the genres. So public DB set genres get set. Now, just so you see this, now when I jump back here, that error is gone. All right, so I was getting it because it didn't know what the heck genres meant. All right, so we're going to do 2 things now. Do you have this line?
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay. First thing we want to do is we want to come in here and add a genre to each one of our 3 movies. And don't worry, you may get an error on some of this. If you do, we're going to fix it right away because we got to change something down below. So let's see. Moonstruck is not, that's a rom-com, so that's an R. All right. Wonder Woman, genre ID equals A, it's an action movie. And Casablanca, the genre ID is D for drama. All right. So we had to go in and add those because we added them to the actual model. All right. So now we've got that seed data in. The problem that we have, though, is as of right now, the system has no idea what any of those mean because we haven't put in A for action, D for drama, R for rom-com, etc. So we've got to add, we got to do another one of these things that we just did to add the movies. Right underneath the ones we just added, we've got to add another one right here. So we're going to say model builder dot entity genre dot has data Now, we could do it just like this, but there's only 2 fields. So rather than putting it over 5 lines like this, I'm going to put each one on its own line. I'm going to say new genre, genre ID equals A, name equals action, like that. All right. And I'm going to actually copy this down 6 or 7 times and just make changes. All right. Let me know when you've got all that stuff put in.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. So in essence, what we're doing here is we're creating the schema. And what we're doing here is we're adding the data. All right. And this is just the way that you do it here. That's the best thing I can tell you. All right. Now, I don't know, the order in here shouldn't matter, just so you know. Even though we're referring to genre ID before we've actually set it, it should still be fine. That's the way I did it, and it worked without a hitch. There was no problem in it whatsoever. All right. And now I'm going to come back in and I'm going to do a file, save all, and I'm going to close my movie context, and I'm going to go back to my movie controller. And again, that error is now gone from there. Just so you know this, and it's not a big thing one way or the other, this can be written on one line. What we're doing here, if you remember this from the days of jQuery, is what we're doing right there is we're chaining. We're chaining the to list to the order by to the context dot, dot genres, etc. All right. So this is the add right here. This is going to end up basically showing us the add screen. But remember, we're using the add screen both for add and for edit. So that's not an error right there. All right. We're returning the word edit with our new movie. So this is going to be whatever we put into that blank form that asks us for a movie name, for a year the movie was released, for a rating for the movie, and for the genre for the movie. All that stuff is going to be passed, but it's going to be passed using edit rather than add. And again, that's going to allow us to use the same form for both our adds and our edits. Continue on. So ATP get in here, and this is going to be a public iAction result, but this is going to be for edit. Now, think about this. If we want to edit a record, we have to know what record it is we want to edit. So unlike add, where you don't pass anything, we have to pass an ID in. It has to know, hey, what movie do you want to edit? All right, that's it has to know that. All right. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to, you can do it either way, but I'm going to copy these lines here, right there, and I'm going to paste them in here. Now you don't have to do that. I'm going to change the action to edit, but I want to do the same thing here. Now, you may or may not remember this from the other day. ViewBag, for lack of better words, it's kind of the equivalent of a wild card, which means you can use it to hold anything. You can use it to do just about anything with just about anything. All right. And that is not a great explanation, but that's the best thing I can tell you. ViewBag dot, whatever you put after that, all right, becomes basically the equivalent of a global variable to the program. So we're going to have something in here that's going to be called action. And that action will be add, or it'll be edit, or it'll be delete. So it'll be one of our CRUD actions. We also have a ViewBag thing in here called genres. And what that's going to do is it's going to provide for us a list of genres. All right. Now, in here, all we're doing is adding a record. Boom. But in here, we want to edit. All right. So after we do this, we next want to go in and we want to say var movie equal context dot movies dot find ID. Return view movie. So I'll let you put that in because I want to explain everything that is going on right there. It's important that you have an understanding of what's going on in there. So let me know when you've got it done, please.
I am done.
Okay. This was in your book. This will return either the first record it finds with that ID or it'll return no. So movie will either hold whatever movie that we clicked on, where we clicked on an edit link, and it'll go look for it and it'll return that information for that movie. Or if for some reason it didn't exist, it'll return no. All right. Now, we've now handled the get for our add, and we've handled the get for our edit. All right. Now it's time to do the post. And the kind of cool news is we're going to do a post on edit, but we're going to write it in such a way that it will handle both edits and adds. All right. So we're going to put a routine in here that'll be about 10 or so lines. Then when we get done, we'll do the 2 delete routines, which are both real short, and then we'll be done with this controller. All right. All right, there's about 4 more lines in here, but I want you to get to this point, and then let me know when you're there. We'll go over this, then we'll put in the last 4 lines.
Okay, I've got this.
Okay. This is making sure with the model state is valid that any field that we are putting in there has been filled. So in other words, if it's a new movie that we filled in the name, the year that it was released, the rating, and the genre. And if it was an existing movie, we didn't remove one of those and leave it blank. All right. If it's a brand new movie, it has no ID. It won't have the ID until we save it. And that's actually, we're saving it right here. Does that make sense to you? Because we're not adding the ID itself. The system is adding the ID for us. So if the movie.movie ID is 0, it's a brand new movie. All right. So if that's the case, new movie. So we get ready to add it, which makes it ready to be added to the database. All right. Otherwise, it's an existing movie because it already has an ID. So we're going to call the update routine, which gets it ready for us to be able to do this. Either way, whether we call this or whether we call this, when we get done, that writes it to the database. And after we've written the record to the database, we basically go back to our home page. Why? Because we want to make sure that new record has been added and you can see it, or that existing record has been modified and you can see it. Okay? So this didn't work. So if model state wasn't valid here, that means there was an error. We had an error. We tried to save this, but there was an error. All right. grab that, what we did before this. So I will let you key in those 4 lines and then we'll go over what that means.
Okay, I'm ready to go over it.
Okay, all right. This means all the information that we entered into the form was valid. So we have to check here. Check for new movie. That's exactly what we're doing right here. If the ID is 0, it is a new movie, so we do an add. Otherwise, it's not a new movie, so we're going to do an update. All right. And then we save the changes and go back to our home page. If this did not validate, that means we screwed up. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, we want to keep them on the page that they were on, but we want to know if on that page, should we say add or should we say edit? We should say add if there was no ID. Otherwise, we should say edit. And that's what we're going to be returning to the view. All right. So let's write the last one in here, which is going to be our delete routine. It's got a get and it's got a post, and each one of them is about 3 or 4 lines long. This one is pretty simple right here. It's telling us, okay, we just selected that we wanted to delete that. Find the associated ID of the movie we want to delete. And we're going to pass that to the view, so we're going to be able to delete it. Now, this doesn't delete it. Remember, a get only shows, it only shows a message or a form or something else. It's the post that actually does the work of, in this case, deleting. Oops, and that's it. So in the get, that's when we're basically looking, all right, for a movie to delete. And with the post, we're attempting to actually do the delete. So we have now written the home controller, the movie controller, the genre.cs model, the movie.cs model, the movie context.cs model. All right. Are you all caught up?
Yes, I'm good.
Okay. Now, I want to see if I can find where that line goes that I was screwing up before, the one in the program.cs file. So, I mean, we can go on, but I want us to be able to run this before the period's over. All right. So I want to figure out where that line goes in here because I must have put it in the wrong spot. So it is 205. Let's take till 215. If I cannot find it, we're going to come back and we're going to write all of our views. All right, there will be about 6 views that we have to write. But after that point, we have to figure this out or we can't run the doggone program. We can run it, but we're not going to be able to use the database. So that's what I'm going to look for right now. All right, it's 2:15. Now I went back to the line and just recopied it, and it did not give me an error. So please, if you would, go back to your program.cs file and try to see if you can add that and tell me if you get any error or not in yours.
Okay, mine looks good now. I had to add the builder in front of configuration.
Okay. All right. So let's save this. Let's do a save all and let's close this one. Now what I want you to do, now is going to be the big reveal. I think you'd agree if you go out, like I showed you before, if you go out here, if you at least look at mine, I know this is kind of hard to read. I do not have a database that's called Movies DB. I do not have one in there. I'm not asking you that. I'm telling you that. I've got a movies database, but there's no Movies DB in there. Okay. We're going to see if we can add it right now. So what I'd like you to do, and make sure you've already done the file save all, so all your files have been saved. Go to Tools, go to NuGet Package Manager, and choose the top option, Package Manager Console, right there. If it worked, then down at the bottom, you've now got this. You might have to stretch up or down to be able to see it. All right. And I think you'll also agree if I take a look in here, I'm going to close my controllers folder. I'm going to close my models folder and even my views folder. Right now, I do not have, and you shouldn't either, a folder named migrations. We're going to see if we can create one right now. So we're going to type this in. Technically, just so you know, technically it is case insensitive, but usually people put add hyphen migration. And then if it's a single word, you don't need double quotes. So I'm just going to call this initial setup like that. So add hyphen migration space initial setup. After you put that in, hit enter. And it failed. Fantastic, right? Okay, now we have to see if we can debug why it failed. And you have to tell me if yours passed or yours failed.
Mine also failed.
Okay. And the bad news is there's multiple reasons it could fail. All right, let's start with the ones that make the most sense. And that is, I'm going to go back to my models. I'm going to look at my genre ID. Yeah, that's set and that's set. It doesn't appear to be there. Okay, that's the first thing. Then I'm going to go back to my movie here and do the same thing. Set string name. I mean, it can be something as simple as I screwed something up in here. I didn't put in a double quote or whatever. So that's what I'm looking for right now. I don't see anything erroneous in mine. Okay. All right. Again, I'm going to close that. All righty. Now, so the next thing to do is I'm going to check the controllers. So I'll start with my home controller just to make sure, again, I don't have any errors in there. Controller, context, get set. Good. That looks good. Now I'm going to check my My movie, I don't think I need these. It looks like I'm not using them. I didn't put those in, the system did. Okay. Well, that should not say true. I don't think that'd be enough to make that fail though, but we'll see in just a moment. Sometimes, that's one of those things. I didn't add that. That was added by the system. All right. But I don't think that's enough to make that fail. All right. One more thing to check, and that is our context file. So I'm going to check this one. It's all good. That all looks correct. All right. I am going to try doing one thing first. And that is I'm going to do a file, save all, and I'm going to do a build, and I'm going to tell it to build a solution. All right, now it's giving me an error here, and it's telling me that that error view model is still in here someplace. That's probably why this failed, believe it or not. So let's see. I've got to be able to open this file, view shared error, whatever the heck this is. I just shouldn't have changed. I shouldn't have removed that file, to be honest with you. It doesn't do anything. I didn't need it, and that's why I removed it. So let's see if I can find that file. It is called views_shared_error_cshtml.g.cs. Never even heard of that file before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do a search on my project for that file. Of course, it says it doesn't match. Lovely. Let's see if we can do this. How about this?
Mr. Scott, I was dealing with this on the test. I think it's going through views shared, and then there's an error.cs.html. I think I'm trying to remember if I deleted that.
All right, let's take a look. That's totally fine with me. Oops. All right, so views shared. It's not in there.
Or under shared.
Yeah, I mean, one of these.
I have 3 files in my shared folder. Like I have those 2.
And?
No, I mean, I have 3 different files. There's layout, CS/HTML, validation scripts, partial, and error within the shared folder. I have view imports and view start kind of next to the shared folder.
Okay.
They're not within it.
Yeah, and mine are not there. So let me do this. First of all, I'll tell you what. Can you remove, you don't really need that partial one. And you don't really need that error one. Try to remove them both. And then go back and run from your package manager console, hit your up arrow and see if you can run the add migration.
Yes, it worked.
Okay. So you got that. For some reason, I don't have that file and I don't know why. I understand exactly what you're saying, because typically when you create this, you get some extra files here that I don't have. There they are. All right. Error, partial, and error. Okay, let's delete those. All right. I'm going to go back and see now. I shouldn't have to do this, but can I build my solution? I just want to see. It's giving me some warnings, and that's okay. But it's not giving me an error. So I'm going to go back to my tools, package manager console, and I'm going to attempt to add this. Now it says build succeeded. Good. So you'll notice that now I have a migration folder, and it's got 2 files in it. One is snapshot. You shouldn't touch that one. This is the one I just created, and it's right here. So it shows how it used code to come in here and set up the schema right there. And then it also went in and shows how it used code to add the data. Okay. Now, it has not yet created a database. We've got to run this method right here that's called up. But the way you run that method is in here. You type in update -database and hit enter. And ideally, at least, ideally, this is going to come back with my prompt in just a second. All right. An error occurred while establishing a connection to SQL Server. The server was not found or was not accessible. All right. That's telling me that I should go back into my app settings.json and look what I did. I said MSSQU instead of SQL. Now, I'd like to say to you, you know what? I did that on purpose to teach you a lesson. That'd be BS. I screwed up. So that does give me a chance to do this. First of all, I'm going to save. Now I'm going to remove that migration that I created before. So I'm going to say remove migration. If yours work, don't do any of this. All right, now I'm going to do my add migration again, initial setup. All right, now I'm going to do my update database. And sometimes when stuff like that happens, it's a good thing because you can see now it worked. Now, if you look on my screen and you can do the same, you want to go back and you want to click this button right here. That's your refresh button. And then you want to look, and underneath your local DB, MS SQL, etc., under databases, under system databases, you should now have a database named Movies DB. And if I look in here, there's my tables, my genre, and my movies. So I can right mouse click and I can say view data. There's my 3 movies. I can right mouse click and choose view data on genre. And there's my 7 genres. Okay. So the good news is everything's working. The bad news is with that goofy error that I had before with the program.cs file, we didn't do it in the same order they did it in the book. You know what? Big hairy deal. All right. So you are where I am right now. Is that correct?
I got all of my prompts seem to work, but it's not showing up in my server object explorer.
All right. There might be a couple of them up here. You want to make sure you're choosing the right one. You are choosing local DB, MS SQL server, local DB.
I have local DB SQL server. Mine looks a little bit different.
You might have a different number or something here, and that doesn't matter.
Yeah, it says local DB / project models.
Oh,
and then SQL server. Yeah, instead of MS SQL local DB, it says project models.
Okay, then this is what you may have to do. I don't know because I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
Okay. You can see that mine is right here, local DB, etc. Everything before this paren. Okay. Do you have something like this, but you have projects on the end?
Yeah, it's local DB / project models. Nothing about MS SQL local DB, and then it goes parentheses SQL server, and it looks pretty much the same as yours, except different numbers.
Okay. You don't have 2 of them though. You just have the one that looks like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what we can do. I don't know if this will fix it or not, but what you're going to have to do then to see if you can get that to work is you are going to have to go back into your app settings.json file to start with.
Yeah.
And you will have to change that to whatever yours is.
Okay. And then I guess remove.
Yeah, do a remove migration, then do another add migration and an update database and see if it gives it to you that way. You know, I had a long talk with Evan, and just so you know, he had really, really good things to say about you, as I would too. I mean, you feel free to use me as a reference, and I think you could use him with no problem.
Well, thank you.
No, not a problem. But the reason I'm telling you that though, Grant, is he was saying to me, he said, man, I can see why you need to have at least one person in the class with you. He said, because if they're not there and something's going wrong, you have nobody to tell you. And I just laughed. I said, welcome to my world. Because last semester with the first year people, half the time I had no one there. And it was weird. All right, this past summer, because I taught C#, and there were, most of the time I'd say there was no one there.
Right.
So I don't know.
So I've got a different error now. It says, can I create file? And it's got a file path because it already exists. Change the file path or the file name and retry the operation.
Did you look in here? So you did not have a database in here named Movies DB. Is that correct?
No. Correct, yeah. Under
Okay.
databases or under system databases, there's nothing.
Okay. Now, we talked about this at the beginning of the semester, but there's a couple things I just wanted to check. And that is, if you go into Visual Studio Installer, all right, if you bring this up and you click Modify, am I right in assuming that you've got a check by ASP.NET and web development, and
Yes.
you've got a check by .NET desktop development, and you've got a check by data storage and processing?
Yes, I got all this.
All right. Now, my guess is, and again, not seeing your screen, but my guess is, for whatever reason, you don't have MS SQL loaded on your machine. What is that?
I guess maybe not.
Okay, and what does that mean? Well, that means that whatever you're putting in here is not what the system is considering to be your local server. That's why I think it's erroring out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a folder for Microsoft SQL Server 2019 that I'm sure I downloaded last fall.
So let's see. Now you could use 2019, you could use 2022. I've got 2019, but it works just fine.
Yeah.
All right. But I've got here download. So if you want 2019, that's totally fine. But I'm going to go over here to where it says Microsoft SQL Server 2019, download and install right there. I want to see what's here. We don't want to buy anything. We shouldn't have to buy anything. Okay, I don't want to use that link then. Download SQL Server 2019 unlimited memory. I don't know what that is. No, we could even put in 2022. Like I said, it won't hurt anything. That's the one I want. Okay, it's under Microsoft.com/en-us/ here. Let me make this bigger.
Yeah, okay, I'm there.
All right.
I certainly remember doing this before.
If you say you did it, I have no reason to doubt
Yeah.
you. All right.
Something's not working.
Yeah. I would think you'd be able to just choose the Windows installation setup. I'm sure you've got a 64-bit machine.
Yeah.
And that if you click that, it's probably going to load some big hairy butt exe file that it'll eventually tell you or ask you if you want to open, and you'd say yes. Now, if we look over here before you even do that, I'm going to go to Control Panel here. All right, and I'm going to go to Programs and Features, and I'm going to look and see what I have. What you should have is both something like this, Microsoft SQL Server 2019 Local DB, and you should have this, Microsoft SQL Management Server Management Studio. So can you see if you have both of those, that one and this one?
Yeah, I've got both of those.
You got them both. Wait, I'm trying to think of what the heck the problem could be. It should not be anything with a like you need an upgrade or anything like that. It shouldn't be, because that's not an error you would get if you needed an upgrade.
Now it's saying that it's saying it can't create this file because it already exists.
Well, what you can try to do then, all right, is go back to your app settings.json file. You can go back to that file, just change the name of this, make it like movies DB2. All right.
Right.
And then run your add migration again and see if it succeeds or fails.
Okay.
And if it succeeds, do your update database again and see if that succeeds or fails.
Okay, my migrations look successful. Okay, that looked successful. The update database.
Okay.
And now refresh. Movies DB2 shows up now right under system databases.
Okay. Well, that's good. And can you right mouse, open it up, go to tables and right mouse click on each table and view the data and see if the data's in there?
Yes, I see genres and movies. Both look good.
Okay. I don't know what it was then, but
I
again,
wonder if doing it
go ahead.
incorrectly first with that name, with the wrong path, and then when I tried to do the path again, it was the same name, and it just.
Yeah, and all I would tell you is anything's possible.
Yes.
I definitely what you just said could have happened. All right, let's go on and let's do this, because what we're going to do next is it's kind of the biggest thing we've done so far. And what I mean is this will let us know if we're going to be able to literally talk to the database. So I'd like you to open up under Views Home, open up index.cshtml. And this will be a bit of typing. It's about 30 lines. Tell me when that's open.
I'm ready.
All right, remove everything that's in there. It's garbage. And start putting in this if you would. Oops. That's got to be in double quotes. Sorry about that. Go. That over. So that's what's going to go on top of the form we're about to create. That's what we'll click if we want to add a new movie. Let's add some bootstrap. When you get done here, put in a blank one. You'll know why in about 2 minutes. So I'll leave it right there. I'll let you put that in. Let me know when you're there. That's about half of what we got to do. So,
Okay, I'm there.
all right. Now, just so you know, and we may have talked about this already, all right, what this says is that we are about to be working with a list of movies. We don't want to just put movie there because that means we're working with a single movie. We're not. This is the page that's supposed to show us our entire list. That's why it's list of movie. This is just going to be the title that's going to be up in our bar, our address bar up on top. So, okay, so we'll have an H2. Then in here, this says, hey, this add new movie, if we click that link, it should go to the movie controller. And in the movie controller, it should find the add method in the movie controller. And it should allow us to add a new movie. Now, we haven't written that because we don't even have in here for our views, we don't even have the view for that yet. So don't worry about that. And then this is going to be the form that we're going to create. And we only have to list the headings once, you know that. But after the headings here, we're going to put the body in. All right. And in the body, we're going to put in a for each loop. Move this up a little. There we go. Notice that for the genre, we're telling it to go to the other table. All right. That's gonna show us everything for the movies. But what we want to put after that, and that's what we're putting here, is we two links. One that will allow us to edit an existing movie and one that will allow us to delete an existing movie. So that's what we're putting in here right now. All right, it's about 5 or 6 lines we got to type. And then we end our body, we end our table, and that's it. So this will be it for in here. All right, that's the first one. I'm just going to copy it because it's pretty similar to the other one. I believe that that's everything. You better spell route right, not like I did. All right, I think that's everything. So let me know when you've got that.
Okay, I think I'm good.
All right. So do a file, save all, and run it. Now, most of it's not going to work, and that's okay. But what I want to see is when this comes up, does it show us our list of movies? There we go. Does yours look like that when it comes up?
Mine is not wanting to connect.
You're getting an error, or what's happening?
It just says this site can't be reached, localhost refused to connect. Try checking the connection or checking the proxy on the firewall.
Uh, change that. As far as I remember, the only place that you have to include the name of your database is in your app settings.json file, and we updated that one. That one says, doesn't it? It says movies DB2 or whatever you called it.
In the app settings, yes.
Okay, and that's what it's called too on your system, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, what I'd like to do is to go on, okay? But what I'd like you to do, Grant, if you don't mind, is at the end of the period today, take your entire project and save it, and don't worry about the database, but put it out onto your YouTube, out onto your GitHub repo, and I will look at it tonight.
Okay.
All right. All right. We've got our index.cshtml, but if we click edit, we're going to get an error because it's looking for an edit under movie, and we don't even have a movie here under views. So that's why we're getting that error. And we'll get a similar one for delete. So we can rate those next. All right. And this privacy thing, we remove that so that we're going to get an error there too. Okay. So all I'm saying is what I want to do next is I want to do a file save all here. And I'm going to close this one we just were working on. So this one I'm going to close the index.cshtml. Then I'm going to go into my layout file here, and down at the bottom, that's where they've got all this stuff in here. I think somewhere in here is the privacy stuff. There it is. So I'm going to remove it from here. And it's probably down on the bottom too. There it is. Movie list. And all I'm going to do right here is just get rid of that. All right. There's really no reason I have to even make that a link. Just going to say movie list. That's it. All right. So now if I save this and run it again, the only thing that's changed is the bottom of my screen. Now it just says 2023 movie list. All right. But I can't add either because I haven't written that routine. So what we need to write for movie is we need to write all those routines, all those views for using an actual movie. All right, so in other words, we will need a movie delete, we will need a movie edit, etc. Does that all make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's see. Give me a second here. All right, let's write the delete one first. That's fine because it's short. We can see whether or not it works. All right. So again, I can save that. Now I can close this. And the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to views, and under views, I'm going to add a new folder called movie. So add new folder, movie, singular, MOVIE. And under movie, I'm going to first come in and add a new view. It'll be a razor view empty. And we're going to call this delete.cshtml. Whenever you create these CSHTML files like this on the fly, this is always garbage. Just get rid of it. This is only about 15 lines long. So here it's just one movie, right? We're just trying to, so it's at model movie. That's all we're trying to do is to remove a movie. In here. Okay. That's everything. Let me know when you're done with that.
Okay, I've got it.
All right, so I'm going to do a file save all, and I'm going to run this. And now I should be able to click on the delete button, and it should prompt me confirm deletion. Now I'm not going to click delete because I think it's going to work, and I can cancel. It says this page cannot be found. Okay. Home delete. Well, I screwed something up there. Let's see what I screwed up. Home. There's no equal sign there. There we go. We try it again. So I can pick any movie, delete, and if I say delete, it'll be gone. I'm going to click cancel, and it sends me right back. All right. Now, if you were having problems with the other stuff, this probably didn't work either. But the good news is all the other stuff that we still need to type in, you're typing in. All right. So let's go in. Let's stop the run here. And I'm going to do a file save all. And now let's write edit.cshtml. And remember that edit, ideally at least, is going to handle for us both adding a new movie and editing an existing movie. So I'm going to close this. And inside of here, under my movies, I'm going to add another view. And this will be a razor view empty. And it will be edit.cshtml. And again, I will remove all the garbage that's in there because I need none of it. And I'm either going to be adding or editing a single movie. So it's at model movie. And this is kind of neat, what we're doing here. We'll talk about it in a minute. Right, let me just put a couple more lines in, and we'll just one more. All right, let me know when you've got all that.
I've got that.
All right. You may or may not remember, but when we were in our controller in here, we figured out whether this was add or whether that was edit. Remember that? Okay. The reason that's important is that's what we're using here. So we're either going to have, for the title, it's going to either say add movie or it's going to say edit movie. So it's going to be doing the right thing based on which of those values that we gave it. So now we have to come in here and make another form. It's a little bit bigger than our last one because remember, it's got to put all those fields in there. So So the first thing we have there, and I can move that, is we're going to have a validation summary. So if we have errors, that's going to show at the top of our form. All right. And then we've got to add the name, the year, the genre, and the rating. All right. So that's what we've got to put in here yet. All right, so that's going to put in our name field and our year field. The next one we want to put in is genre, but we're going to do that one differently. What we want to do is we want a drop down list, and we want that list to show us the name of every genre that we have. We don't want it to say A, we want it to say action. We don't want it to say D, we want it to say drama. That's why, if you remember back in here, when we set up this movie file, remember how we brought in this? Because that's where the name is in there. And we need that now with what we're doing. All right, so where are we here? All right, so this is the majority of the typing we're going to do in here. All right, 3 more lines. That's everything. All right, let me know when you've got all that.
I think I'm ready to go. And my browser is working now. I'm not sure if it was just running slowly and wasn't
Oh,
loading things, but it is up and running.
great. All right. So now let's see, can I edit a movie? There's Casablanca. All right. And notice it's showing me all of the genres. So if I wanted to make it, I'll make it an action movie. Let's change the rating from a 5 to a 4. Let's change the year to 1944 and click edit. The genre field is required. Well, it is in there. That's weird. Okay, it doesn't like something, but we'll have to fix that. Let's see if we leave these off. I'm doing this on purpose. All right, we're getting our errors. All right, so we'll put in back in here Casablanca. Let's put in a year that's out of date. And let's put in a rating that's out of date. All right, year, rating. The genre I'm going to have to check. I must have an error in my code. All right, and cancel, just canceled it. So let's go back and look at that. It would be, of course, in here because that's where I'm dealing with the genre. So let's see if I missed anything. That all looks correct. I will double check it. All right. I don't know what the problem is right now. But, and I do believe, let's see. Now we could try to add a new movie. So let's see. Rocky. Still doesn't like the genre field. Everything else looks like it's working though. So what the hey is wrong with that genre field? Well, again, I'll have to check that. I don't know what the problem is. All right. Are you getting the same error on yours for genre?
Yeah, I am.
All right. And think of what the problem could be. We have now added our view files. I'm going to go back and look at, let's see, so I'm going to do a file save all here, close this, and I'm going to bring up my underscore layout .cshtml file because there's a lot of stuff in here we don't need. I'm going to just get rid of it and rewrite it myself. Because the one I wrote is only like 15 lines long. I've got it. That is my entire layout file right there. Do you have all that?
Yes, I'm good.
Okay. And I want to check under my view imports, movie list models, and our tag helpers. That looks good. All right. Well, it's not picking up my CSS. I don't know why. That's why this looks funky. Yeah, it's not grabbing that genre. See if I can fix that though. Does not like this line right here. It'd be a slash there. I think that's what it was. All right, so there it is. Okay. And again, I can come in, I can edit, I can delete, I can add a new movie. But for some reason, something is hosed with the genre. So what I'm going to do is we're going to finish. I mean, we've been going 3.5 hours almost. And I think that's good for today. I will see if I can find that error. So I'm right now in assuming yours is working just like mine is now.
Yep, everything except the genre.
Great. All right. So let's do this before we finish for the day. Now, what I did not do was spend a boatload of time going over, we went over migrations. And actually, I'm not trying to be funny, but I think screwing it up was a good thing because it showed us a lot of different things. All right. Here was how to select the data. So if you want more on the find, the where, etc., that's on 149. The insert, update, and delete data. All right. I believe you understand how to use all these. Notice what it says, though, the add, the update, and the remove. It marks it as being ready to be saved. The save to your database does not take place until you call save changes. It may change it on the screen, but it has not changed it on the database. All right. So they have a thing in here. If you do decide you want to print out debug statements, you can put that in. I have found that to be kind of miserable. All right. Then there was the home controller, which we already built. And if you need more of an explanation than I gave you, if you didn't like the explanation I gave you, you can look at that. All right, there's the movie controller. I'm going to go back and in there, I'm going to see if I missed anything for that genre ID. I don't know what it would be. The weird thing is everything is showing. It's just when we try to write it out, it's not writing back out. That's what the problem is. All right. So I'll go back, like I said, look at that. We went through the edit view. Again, we're using the edit for both edit and for add. We did the delete, which was very short. How to relate one entity to another. This is what I mentioned to you before. That's when we went back in and we added this. So just adding this was the foreign key. All right, and we added this so that we were able to go in later and grab that genre name field. All right, and again, that appears to be almost where I'm still having the problem. All right. Now they have a thing in here too, and I'll have to look at that because we didn't do this. Notice what it says. How to turn off data validation for the genre property. Maybe we should have done that and we didn't. Where it says, so this would be in here, this would be putting in a validate never in here. All right. And by doing that, though, I think we would have to add another migration. So let me try doing that before we finish up, see if that fixes the problem or not. So that's going to be back. Genre file, no, I'm sorry, in our movie file right here. And where we have this right here, not there, right here, come on. Oh, come on, you, come on. So I'm going to try to put in here a validate never. All right. Doesn't like that. So what doesn't it like? There's a using statement that's not in here that we had to add this. All right, but I want to just see if that's going to fix it or not. So it said do this, and I think they even set it up in here. Yep, they set it up to default it to no. All right. Doesn't like that. Doesn't need a question mark there. No, just doesn't like it. Okay. But let's see if now we can add a new movie. Got it, right? That was it. So put that validate never in there. I don't remember doing that when I taught this class last, but it did like it. So now I should be able to edit Rocky. Let's call it Rocky 4. And we'll say that was 1998. That'll be action. Let's say that was just 2 stars. We edit it. Now it's been fixed. Can we delete it? And we've deleted it. So we've now gone through the whole CRUD stratosphere, so to speak. So make sure you go back and, like I said, add this, go back into your movie.cs file, and above this line right here, add validate never and initialize that to null. Then go back and see if that takes your genre after you do that. Does it now work for you?
Yes, mine is good now.
Great. All right, so I'm going to do one last file, save all. I am going to save this out there. So if anybody wants to look at it, they can. But if anybody chooses to use this, you will have to go in after you're working on this. You will have to go in and do a migration to create the database and then do an add or an add dash migration, give it a name that should make the database for you, then an update hyphen database. All right. So tomorrow, we are now through with chapter 4. Chapter 5 is very short. All right. Let me do this and this. All right. You've gone through all these already. This contact manager app, I don't know if we use a database in there or not. I want to look at it. This looks very similar to the one we just did. All right, so I'd like to do that one. I'll assign it, but we'll do it together tomorrow, 4.1. All right. For 5.1, this is a kind of a stupid example. They put an error in their file and they have you fix it. I think everybody can do that themselves. So I'm not going to assign that. All right. And tomorrow, what we'll also look at is that Sports Pro. We started looking at it the other day and had a problem with it, but I want to get us to the point where we can take a look at what's in there and we'll start working on that together, and then I'll assign the rest. So for tomorrow, if you have not done so, I'll spend the first half hour max, but probably half an hour going over chapter 5. After we get done with chapter 5, we'll do exercise 4.1. After we do exercise 4.1, we'll look at the case study, the Sports Pro, and we'll look at that and do the beginning of that one together. Does all that make sense?
Yes, sounds good.
Okay, sounds great. Then I will talk to you all tomorrow. Have a good rest of the day. Thanks.
Thank you, you too.